One thing that can be helpful when we are plural, when we live with dissociative identity, is mapping our internal systems if folks inside are willing to share. There's often someone inside who knows how the whole system is structured or how big pieces of the system is structured. And for me, also the cult created folks inside, and then the self created folks inside, and then where the cult tried to hide folks inside who were cult created and cult trained. And it can help a lot to map it out, to be able to look at like who split off who split off who, and the relationships and the jobs that folks inside have and do, and then to be able to work with them and work with them on healing. But if you're also a cult torture survivor, there can be programming set off when we try to look at who's inside and what the relationships are, and we try to map it out. And so then it's talking with those folks to say, like, this is for our healing, and we don't need to be like cults, and we're not being tortured and abused anymore if we're safe, and that it's okay to map it out. But with mapping, it can also feel really vulnerable because it shows who's connected to who and names and jobs. And something that the cult frequently does is pull out folks inside, specifically cult trained folks, for torture. And so there are going to be some folks who are naturally resistant to it or who are scared to have it all mapped out because it can feel really vulnerable. So it's like assuring them that like it's not going to be used in that way, that like you'll be careful with who sees it, or maybe you won't show anyone except maybe your therapist if you trust them, or like someone really close to you if you actually trust them and know that they're safe, and that you work on it together. And then it's also, if you're still being tortured, trying to make sure that the cult doesn't know that you're mapping it out. I started mapping it out when I was still being tortured, and it meant increased torture, and it meant the cult planting cult created folks inside in some of my safe areas intentionally to make things harder for me and to make it so that I couldn't map it out. And yet I was able to bypass some of the programming and the torture, but it can mess things up. It can be really hard. So it's working at your pace, as slowly as you need to, and with all the safeguards you need to figure out what's going on inside, because it helps us to see the connections and the relationships and who was created why or what their jobs are. Like, it helps us when we live with everyone inside, but it has to be when we feel safe to do it too. And that can be a process or that can be a negotiation, but it really can be helpful and give us a lot of insight and help in therapy.